Inside Winston Cup Racing, a weekly 30-minute look at the men and machines that make up the world's most popular motorsport. With your hosts, Ned Jarrett and Steve Burns.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inside Winston Cup Racing. Today, we're in Charlotte, North Carolina at the Cale Yarborough shops. This is where they build and maintain his Hardee's Oldsmobiles.
And Ned Cale just recently made the announcement about his arrangements for 1988, and it's a unique situation. We'll have that for you a little bit later on, in addition to everything else in this half hour.
This week, we'll show you all the highlights from the Unical 76 Pit Crew Championship. The unsung heroes of the sport get to grab the spotlight and see who has the fastest guns.
And in this week's NASCAR Notebook, we'll go over some of the rules that NASCAR has concerning pit stops.
We'll show you the story of Jimmy Means, one of the hardest working drivers on the NASCAR circuit. Jimmy had the ride of his life at the Oakwood Homes 500 in Charlotte. You'll see the dramatic story and much more.
Mobil One synthetic motor oil. No matter what you drive, or how you drive, or where you drive, or what conditions you drive under. With Mobil synthetic oil technology, there's no finer engine protection on Earth or anywhere else.
Excellence in America, brought to you by today's Chevy truck, the heartbeat of America.
Steve, for the past 2 years, the Unical Rockingham Pit Crew Championship and the NASCAR Winston Cup Championship have gone hand in hand, proving how important pit stops are. The Richard Childress team have won both.
It helps having a driver like Dale Earnhardt, but the drivers will always tell you in victory lane the pit crew did a great job, the mechanics did a great job. Well, with this championship, the fans and we get to see just how important they are to the success of a Winston Cup team. In the world of NASCAR Winston Cup racing, two of the biggest factors for success are speed and precision. And as any driver will attest, his pit crew had better have these qualities or chances for a visit to victory lane are slim and none. The Unical 76 Pit Crew Championship gives these unsung heroes in the pits a chance to strut their stuff. Once the driver crosses the timing light, the action begins. A 4-tire change and 22 gallons of gasoline. Penalties in the form of seconds are given for a crewman clearing the wall too early, a tire rolling down pit road, too much fuel left in the can, and what is always the biggest problem, loose lug nuts. 19 guns were aimed at the champion crew of the number 3 Wrangler Chevrolet, who, led by crew chief Kurt Shelmerdine, were attempting to rack up their 3rd consecutive Unical title. The competition started a bit rough when the Crisco Oldsmobile crew of Buddy Baker had serious problems and were disqualified. The next team on the block was that of the Miller American Buick, driven by Bobby Hillen Jr., led by crew chief Billy Woodruff. The Miller crew was on its mark and cracked the world record time the Wrangler crew had set in 1986 of 27.6 seconds. A 1-second penalty was levied against the team for leftover gas. The Miller crew had a new record of 25.832 seconds, and the challenge had been issued. The following competitors tried in vain to beat the new mark. Because of all the pressure, getting the tires on was a problem. In all, 10 of the 20 competitors were penalized for loose lug nuts. Finally, the attention focused on the blue and yellow Chevy screaming down pit road. Poised and ready, the Shelmerdine crew jumped into action.
Number 1 in front, David Smith, up for the jack. All ready, left run, plus off the loop.
As the gas cans and lug nuts were checked, quiet fell over the raceway. With a thumbs up from the crew chief, a new world's record of 23.831 seconds was announced, leaving the Miller crew with a 2nd place finish. A last-minute strategy change had propelled the Wrangler crew to its third straight Unical championship, and Kurt Shelmerdine described how it happened.
There's only a certain amount of people that can be over the wall at a given time, but you can switch persons anytime you want to. One guy can go back and another man can go. And there's some options there on which way you do that. And it was a little unconventional the way the first car did it today, and just about everybody after that did it, and it proved to be a little better.
It takes an incredible team to earn any driver a Winston Cup championship, and without a doubt, Dale Earnhardt can say that his team is the best. Ned, we see a lot of swapping around from year to year of pit crew members, mechanics, and crew chiefs and drivers, but not so in the Richard Childress operation. Those guys have stayed intact for several years.
And I think that's one of the key ingredients of their success over the years, the fact that they have worked together for so long. It's time now for the mailbox, and our first question comes from Bob Bayer of Grays Lake, Illinois, who writes, could you explain how Winston Cup points are awarded to the top 10 finishers of each race, and why finishing in the top 10 at the end of the year is so critically important? Well, Bob, for that answer, we'll go to Bill Elliott, who's been in the thick of the Winston Cup battle for the last several years.
Well, the reason it's so important is you get a lot of extra bonus money at the end of the year. You know, they from the last 2 years, they've awarded it halfway points also. So anytime you can be in the top 10 in points, you get money when you finish halfway of the season, and you get additional money at the end of the year, and it means a lot to all the teams to get that extra money.
Back in 1985, Bill Elliott became the first race driver to ever win over $2 million in one season. Now, Stevie had to win the Winston Million that year in order to go over that mark. Dale Earnhardt and the Richard Childress crew will go over to the $2 million mark this year, and they didn't win the Winston Million. That just shows how much point money and prize money and everything that's involved in the sport today.
When you won the championship, could you imagine running for $2 million?
Couldn't even dream about that much money.
Ned, our second question today comes from J.R. Casaletta of Utica, New York. And J.R. writes, I am writing in hopes you would clearly explain why some drivers use front steering or rear steering on their Winston Cup race cars. Some of the people I talked to about this don't know the difference or reason for the choice of these setups. Well, J.R., for that answer, we'll go to Robin Pemberton, who will be one of the key members on a new team in 1988, the Jack Roush Racing Team.
Okay, J.R., first off, we'll start by showing you where the boxes are located. All right, on a front steer car, the box will be right here, located in the front, obviously, and it'll be in front of the motor, okay? On the rear steer car, here's where the steering box will be located. That's what we run on these Thunderbirds. And the difference is that the tie rods and everything on the rear steer have to go underneath the oil pan, and that sometimes limits you on how low you can run the motor. And on the front steer, the tie rods and the center length will go underneath the harmonic balancer, and that being a little bit higher than the oil pan, it'll let you lower the motors. And some of the drivers like a rear steer only, and I guess Bill Elliott, when he won all those 11 races, he ran a rear steer car. And I guess Darrell Waltrip and Bobby Allison, they really like the front steer cars. But as far as a definite advantage, I don't believe there is one. Thanks, JR.
If your question is used on an upcoming segment of Inside Winston Cup Racing, you'll receive this Timex Speed Track speed computer. This quality engineered computer has a 5-lap memory and can instantly calculate lap time and speed. In addition, we'll send you one of these beautiful style auto racing jackets. Write today to Inside Winston Cup Racing, Post Office Box 240417, Charlotte, North Carolina 28224. And thanks again for writing.
We've got to take a short break right now, but stay with us because when we come back, we'll have the dramatic story of Jimmy Means.
And a little later on, we'll have the NASCAR notebook and the news, which will reveal Cale Yarborough's driver for 1988. Stay with us. Steve, a team like Cale Yarborough's with the Hardy sponsorship, they got the money that they need to be able to buy the best equipment and to be able to run up front in every race.
For the independent drivers, though, like Jimmy Means, Ronnie Thomas, Bobby Wawak, J.D. McDuffie, it's not the case. Many times, Ned, they're racing with used equipment, tires, engine pieces, anything they can get their hands on, and it means that they simply cannot run up front.
Makes it awfully tough on them, but Jimmy Means got a once-in-a-lifetime break at Charlotte.
For nearly all of his 11-year Winston Cup career, Jimmy Means has labored in near obscurity. Though popular and respected by his peers, Means owns, maintains, and drives one of those unsponsored, underpowered cars men like Dale Earnhardt and Bill Elliott pass on their way to fame and fortune. A top 5 finish for men like Means is unheard of. A top 10, few and very far between. Knowing that victory, let alone a good finish, was a vanishing dream, was beginning to take its toll.
I don't want to run the next 10 years as a driver like I have the first 10 years. If we can't be competitive, then I'm not satisfied just being in a race. So if we can't get a sponsor so we can get a little bit better, cars and equipment and be competitive, then I'm not interested in being a driver.
But the new Folgers uniform hanging from Means' slender frame was not a loaner from Tim Richmond or Benny Parsons. Embroidered over the pocket was the same name stenciled on the roof of a Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolet, Jimmy Smut Means. Car owners Rick and Joe Hendrick waved their golden magic wands and in the most popular gesture of the season granted Means the wish of his NASCAR career, the chance to prove how good he could be with frontline equipment. The Folgers car even sported the number 52, so Means could earn car owner points worth money in 1988. But accompanying this Cinderella ride was an ever-present and unwelcome companion. From your perspective, what sort of pressure do you think he's under?
Well, I think it's a tremendous amount of pressure. I really do, because he only has one race to prove to you and to those people there that he is a race car driver, as good as Darrell Waltrip, as Terry Labonte, Rusty Wallace, as good as anyone out there. And just having one race to prove it is a tough spot.
I think he's capable of doing a great job, and I think that it's a tremendous opportunity for him, but I know he's been barraged with questions in the press, and I know everybody wants to hear his story and to congratulate him and all, but that is the tough part about it. I'll have to be honest with you.
In fact, Means received more media attention in 4 days than over his lean 11-year struggle, and made the most of it.
Well, it's a different kind of pressure. When I'm in my own team, in my own car, I'm worried about making the show. Are we going to run quick enough? There's always a lot of cars here to try to qualify. And now I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about how far up we can qualify. I'd like to have a decent run, so that's the pressure I'm under now. And that's a little easier to handle than where I'm going to make the race or not.
The Huntsville, Alabama native spurred his Harry Hyde-prepared mount to the 5th fastest qualifying speed, by far his best ever. That allowed him the rare luxury of not worrying about being bumped from the field. Hyde's worries centered on giving Means a reliable ride, so that meant being a bit conservative with race motor and strategy.
So when you look at Jimmy Means in this car, you got to realize that he's on the conservative side. He's not letting a Jimmy Means go that probably is there, because this is a one-shot deal, and he has to make it work in order to raise any eyebrows or to prove that Jimmy Means is a good driver. And I think a finish in the top 20 would be real good, and the top 10 would absolutely be super.
Conservative or not on the setup, Means was already faster than ever before at Charlotte.
We're running probably right now 5 miles an hour faster than I've ever run in my car. But the speed doesn't, it doesn't seem like it run that much faster. The car just runs that quick with ease, and I'm just enjoying it, and the car's real comfortable, and I'm not having to work.
But most important was just having the opportunity and what it could mean down the road.
Well, naturally, people are going to be looking and see what I can do in the car, and I really hadn't thought about if I do a good job, or maybe I'm going to get offered a ride or something like that. But definitely, you get your name mentioned, and that might help down the road for us coming with a sponsor for my own team.
All the ingredients were present for a fairy tale finish to this story, as heartwarming as Tim Richmond's victorious return at Pocono. It was a car from the same stable, the glass slipper merely sporting a different number and driver. Once the green fell, Means carefully worked traffic, getting familiar with his new, faster surroundings. No reason to get overeager with more than 300 laps facing him. But on lap 20, the clock struck midnight on Means' Cinderella coach. The 8-car meat grinder shattered Means' dream as completely as his car. The one-shot ride had misfired, through no fault of his own. 2 weeks later at Rockingham, Means' own red and black number 52 Pontiac was back in the garage, a small sponsorship as before, keeping Means going. It was also back to a diet of used parts and peanut butter sandwiches.
Well, you know, it's a big letdown. I was just totally dejected. It's, you know, like I said, all the publicity and all the hype, you know, it had to be over in 10 minutes. We hadn't even made a pit stop yet, so that was about as low as I'd been in a long time.
Now what?
Well, you know, I was running my own equipment before that chance, and I'll continue to run my own car. That one race is not going to make me or break me. I met a lot of important people, a lot of nice people, and I feel like I've made some friends, so I probably didn't make a few, you know, I probably made a few enemies along the way too, but it was a good experience for me. I enjoyed it, and just, you know, those are good people, and maybe something will come out of it. I don't know.
Ned, I had the unpleasant assignment, really, of interviewing Jimmy just minutes after his accident, and you could see the disappointment written all over his face.
Well, it was not a fair situation to him. I mean, he was a victim of circumstances there, and a one-race shot doesn't really prove what the guy can do, and I think that he has a lot of talent that he was not able to display there. We need to take a break. When we come back, we'll have the NASCAR Notebook and the news. Steve, we showed the pit crew competition a little bit ago and how important that is, but that can be a dangerous place down there, too.
That was sort of the glamorous part of the job. On race day, it's a completely different story because it is not a place for the timid. And here's this week's NASCAR Notebook.
Beating time at the zoo is no place for the timid. In truth, pit stops can be downright dangerous. The smaller the track, the narrower the pit space and the less margin for error. In the midst of this maelstrom, NASCAR does its best to enforce the rule about who and how many men do what to a thirsty and sometimes wounded race car. The rule says only 6 men over the wall, but that's only one of several things NASCAR watches for on a pit stop.
One is too many men over the wall, and for each additional man, it's a 15-second penalty. Another, if the driver tries to leave the pits too quick, he runs over the jack, or he runs over the air hose. He has to come back in. We check the tire that run over the jack, or we penalize him 15 seconds for the air hose. We watch tires to see that the left side tires are not put on the right. We do take fuel samples during a race.
Concern for safety is the reason for each pit penalty. Put more than 6 men over the wall, increase the chance someone could get hit. Running over a jack might cut a tire and cause a wreck. An air hose hooked around a wheel could snap loose and whip through the pits. When the 3 or 4 cars assigned to each pit road inspector all come in at once, the poor official needs to be like a human fly with eyes aimed everywhere. Given the size of that challenge, sometimes a little leeway is given.
Depends entirely on whether it's 1 man or 3 or 4. If it's 3 or 4 and you catch him holding. True, we do not have enough inspectors to put an inspector on each car. And it is a tough job.
And there's another instance when NASCAR doesn't jump too hard on some teams about men over the wall.
Well, a team that runs all 29 Winston Cup events, there's no reason for them not knowing what the rule is. If we have someone to come in that does not run with us too often, then we may warn him if it's only a one-person deal.
Of all the pit road violations, mounting tires in the wrong position is the most serious. The penalty could be disqualification and suspension. Maybe that's why the tire rule particularly is only broken once in a great while.
Now for the news. Cale Yarborough has hired a driver to race his Hardee's sponsored Oldsmobiles in 1988. In a unique agreement, Cale will be in the car for selected races, and Dale Jarrett will drive all the remaining events. Jarrett has been running for the Rookie of the Year title this season on the Winston Cup circuit, as well as running the entire Busch Grand National Series.
Well, Cale has a contract with Hardee's, of course, for the 29 race schedule. He will race 10 races, 2 each at Daytona, Talladega, Charlotte, Atlanta, and Michigan. I will drive the other 19 races in the car and work with the crew there. It is, I guess, a unique situation, but it's a start and something that we look forward to continuing on down the road. And hopefully I'm going to be able to put a deal together for the other 10 races where I will be able to stay up in the points, and we can look towards maybe 1989 as something where we're going to be running for the championship ourselves here with the Hardee's team.
Dale just came out on top. I told him when we made the deal that I think I pretty well made up my mind last Sunday at the Rockingham race that he held me off for 4 or 5 laps there and battled me so hard. I said, well, I believe I better go on and hire him. So I pretty well made up my mind then, and I'm glad I did. I think the Cale and Dale show will do fine.
Well, our time's up for today. Hope you enjoyed the show. Be with us here next week when we'll have highlights from Riverside, California, the Winston Western 500.
And that's the last road course event of the year, and we'll be shooting on location around the California area, so make sure you're with us.
So long.
The following companies have paid a promotional fee to Inside Winston Cup Racing. Inside Winston Cup Racing's jackets and outerwear provided by Style Auto, the nation's premier source of fast lane fashions. Style Auto, the champion choice for the style of your life. Inside Winston Cup Racing's mobile hospitality suite. This beautiful 34-foot Pace Aero motorhome provided by Fleetwood Enterprises.